What's going on, everybody? It's Dan, Moonshine the Hillbilly Hellraiser, back with another video. Welcome aboard to Moonshine Talking. Hope everyone's having a good one. It's Monday for me as I'm recording this, getting ready to work out in a bit here. So we'll see if I do this in parts or if I can get this done in a timely fashion. Um, Not like getting it done like, oh, come on, let's get this shit over with, but you know what I mean. But this is going to be a different one. Kind of came up with a little conceptual idea for a video, getting all artsy fartsy with the video here. So I was thinking to myself one day, I was gonna do a video, and then it was gonna be about one thing, and then I was thinking, and I decided that I was gonna do this. So the idea is that I picked out a few albums, bands, and such and based it around the word void, and that's pretty much what I'm going to do here. So I got a few albums and bands who I'm going to shine a spotlight on, where either the album is name has void in the name or the band has void in the name, and yeah, and that's what we're going to do. So I'll start off first off. I'll start with this one here. This is a Canadian band called Void Column. They are they're death metal. This is Admonition of Clarity. If you can't really see that, that artwork that you're going to see is by Marty Doom Illustrations. And there's honestly with this there it came on. It was released on Mouth of Madness tapes. There was also a CD release by Nahil Productions, I want to say. But there's really not a lot of info on these guys. Didn't see any band listings in the J card. There's really, other than who mixed and mastered the thing, which the name's escaping me right now, you don't get any information about band members. Don't even see any of that on Metal Archives. It's just basically it's a band from Quebec, Canada. They've put out a few releases. They put one out last year. This is a 5-track EP. Came out in 2022, I want to say, and yeah, it was August 2022, and it's cool. It's got it's like a very subterranean sound to it. Is the best way I could describe it. Lots of guttural, growling vocals. Very meat and potatoes with the guitar, bass, and drums. Death metal, kind of leaning into not so much doom, but little hints and flavorings there, little seasonings, if you will, as far as that goes. Lots of themes of death and dying and corpses and stuff of that nature. Probably my favorite track on it is track number 5, Cave Dwellers. That's a pretty solid tune, and yeah, it's an interesting album. It's not the I wouldn't say it's like the greatest thing I've ever heard or essential or anything like that, but for the purposes of doing this and kind of come up with something a little different, this was a nice opener to get things started. right. So next up, we got this one. This one was actually going to be part of my Death Doom recommendations, but I decided to scrap that, or at least take it off of there in favor of doing it with this one. And that's partially how I came up with the concept for this. And then kind of went from there with a couple other things. But this is a band who, again, not a lot of information on the band itself. I know it's a Finnish project. I'm pretty sure that it's a one man project, probably with some session players or what have you helping out with the music. But this is the band Void Wielder, and it's Hymns for the Unmaker. This came out on Faustian Arts Production, which is a Portland, Oregon label. I will say the one thing, I'll just get my criticism out of the way. I can't stand this packaging. I kind of really wish that they would have done something a little better than this, but it's probably a very, very small label and they probably don't have a lot of funds. So this was what they did, but it was fine. I mean, really the main thing is the music, but I really wished I could have at the very least been able to put this in a jewel case or something like that and then be able to display it a little bit better, at least store it in a better capacity because it's kind of rough just kind of leaving this laying around this little cellophane. But anyhow, that's not the point of this. The point is the music. It's a 7 song album. It's about 42 minutes. It's very dirgy, very atmospheric. Lots of organs in it. The organs are very, very present, omnipresent. That's the word I'm looking for. They're very, very out front in a lot of the tunes, a lot of the songs, and but it's a pretty standard fare death doom. The concept of there's a whole concept to the album where there's this death cult and they're trying to summon cosmic beings to that eventually overrun mankind and take over the world, and that's kind of the flow of the album. That's kind of where it goes with that. And you can kind of, if you're following along with that, even though it's hard to follow along with because you can't understand a lot of the, you can kind of make out little hints of the lyrics here and there, but by and large you can't really tell a lot of that. There's no lyrics along with the album, so you can't follow along in that regard. But you can kind of get the idea just listen to the music, how it goes from just the flow of the songs and the way the songs are crafted, how it goes from kind of creating this atmosphere of these rituals being performed and then them being successful and then all the destruction that occurs and then the eventual rebirth of the world, and which is the last track on it is Birth of a New World. But yeah, it's cool. I really enjoy it. The more I listen to it, it's one of those where the more I've listened to it, the more you start hearing little different things as you listen to songs a little closer. You can hear little on certain tracks. You hear different little guitar passages bubbling underneath the surface. So it's a very cool album. I definitely I would recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Death Doom. It's a pretty good one. Haven't I've mentioned it to a couple of people. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this band. I mean, there's honestly not a lot to talk about because it's pretty much this, a single and a demo, and that's pretty much it. And again, not a lot of information on the band, but still very cool stuff nonetheless. And yeah, if it sounds interesting to you, check out Void Wielder, Hymns for the Unmaker, if I could speak. So next up, I'm cheating a little bit on this one. I originally I was gonna do band names with void in the title, and then I decided, you know what? Because I had one that I was gonna use it, and then the more I was listening to it, I was like, this is it's not my favorite stuff, so I'm not really gonna I'm not gonna try to, as the kids say, glaze on it like it's the greatest thing. But yeah, so I was just like, well, I want to do more than just. I want to try to do more than four. That seems. I always try to do like five. That seems like a nice round number for these sorts of things, these ranking lists and whatnot. Four is just kind of like an odd one. So I cheated a little bit. So if you're saying, well, Dan, how'd you get? Well, it's my channel, my rules. I'll do what I want. Nah. But anyhow, so I came up with Destruction of the Void by Count Raven. And I've talked about this before. A 92 release. I can't remember I think it was, I want to say Music for Nations, but don't quote me on that. I don't remember specifically the label that put this out. But Count Raven's a very cool band. They were recommended to me way back in the day by Steve Keeler and a couple of the folks at Rock Fantasy in Middletown, New York. Shout out to Steve and Rock Fantasy. They have a killer YouTube channel. If you've never checked it out, go check it out. I've talked about Rock Fantasy before as a little sidebar here. Killer record store in Middletown, New York, in the Catskill region of New York. That's where I'm from originally. Uh, Morpheus Descends is from the area. They're from Middletown. If any of you are familiar, that's why I've mentioned it probably multiple times on the channel. That's why I got the flat. I'm a big fan of Morpheus. They're like hometown guys for us, so it's a very cool band. They're good to begin with, but it's cool that they're from our neck of the woods. But went in there one day, was looking for stuff. This was recommended to me. Steve, knowing I was a huge like Sabbath, uh, that type, into that type of doomy kind of stuff. So he recommended Count Raven, and yeah, this is a killer album. I love it. No One's Hero, The Final Journey, Hippies Triumph, uh, Destruction, The Void, the title track, all very killer stuff. If you're someone who's put off by a band or vocals where it's more like a lot of Ozzy worship, then you're probably not going to enjoy it too much. But I think they're a good band. This is probably my favorite album of theirs. I like High on Infinity. There's a few really good songs on there, but this one's definitely a lot better. I really enjoy this one as far as the stuff of theirs. I have Mammon's War as well, and that one's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, most of their stuff is solid, but this one is probably, in my opinion, this is probably their best album. Without having heard all of their stuff, their entire discography, I would have to say that this was my first exposure to them and probably my favorite thus far. But yeah, man, if you've never heard Count Raven before, then go check out Destruction of the Void. That's a perfect album to start with them.
That was meant for every
right, so I'm gonna do this one, and then I'm gonna take a break because I gotta get my workout in before I gotta head into work. I think I mentioned it. My schedule changed, so I'm gonna have a little bit more free time to myself. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with myself. I've gone from working almost 50 hours a week for the past 15 or so years at the very least to now I'm going to be working closer to 40. So I, I just don't know what to do with myself. But I'll figure it out. So next up is Of Terror and Supernatural by Temple of Void. This is a Detroit Rock City five piece. They've been around probably a solid at least 11 years, probably 12 or 13. Again, don't quote me on the specifics on that one. I didn't write anything down. I don't have it memorized. But this is a very cool album. This originally came out on Rain Without End Records, but this copy is a Hammerheart release. It's a reissue. That's what I have, and this is very cool stuff. I love a lot of the stuff on here. It's Rotten Solitude's a really good one. The Embalmer's Art is a really good song. Buried in Death is fantastic. I love the concept of it being like it's a song about insurance fraud gone very, very wrong. And I love Invocation of Death. That's a really cool one. Rotten Solitude, I'll go back to that in a second. But Rotten Solitude, I love the concept of that, like the old school, like friggin' 18th century old like Hammer horror film where you're burying the person alive in the root cellar and you're putting the mortar and the brick and the person's like, oh wait, what are you doing? And then of course the person always dies and they come back to life and they kill the person and it's like friggin' like Peter Lorre, Peter Cushing and people like that sitting there, that sort of deal. But just very cool stuff. I know I'm kind of dabbling a little bit. The C4 is starting to kick in again, fellas. You can give me a sponsorship anytime. I'll push your gut rotting bile that I drink all the time. But anyhow, I'm sure that'll help me in my quest. But yeah, lots of hooks and melodies in this entire album. On Invocation of Death, this is very cool. I don't know if it's a keyboard effect or how they achieve it, but it has a very Night Gallery, the old television series. It has a very Night Gallery effect to it, which I don't know, for whatever reason, just hearing it kind of made me think of that. But just very, very, very cool stuff. I highly recommend this. Most everything I heard of theirs I enjoy, but a very cool band. But this was their debut and super, super solid Death Doom. This one could have been on my Death Doom recommendation list, but I decided to do a conceptual piece, if you will. So this is where we wound up, and I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to do a pause for the cause, as they say, and I'm going to go get a little bit of a workout in, and then I'll be back and I'll finish up this bastard.
Space
almost forgot two things. I want to add these in here. I'll mix it in. We're gonna edit this post production, but I was going to work out, going to hit the cardio machines at the complex fitness center, and I saw the post office people were here, and I realized, oh shit, I got something that's getting delivered today. So I wanted to show that to you real quick. This comes courtesy of Jason at Thrash Metal IQ. He's got an excellent YouTube channel where he buys and sells a lot of people's collections, used CDs, a lot of underground stuff. He's probably got one of the largest collections of underground and mainstream heavy metal of all genres, classes, categories, what have you. He's got just a ton of stuff on his eBay channel, which is also or his eBay channel, his eBay store, Thrash Metal IQ. Go check him out. Uh, I always laugh because with his channel, whenever he does the collection things, the unboxings and all that, it's either one, people are always giving him shit in the comments because of the way he handles the CDs, but I've never had an issue with anything skipping or not playing correctly or anything like that. And then two, a lot of times his cats are always running around in the videos, so he always it's almost like his little catchphrase, and there's a cat. And but it's funny. It just makes me laugh. But anyhow, he did a recent one where he one of the members of Samhain, he bought a bunch of stuff from him. He was showing it off, and one of the things that he got, I was like, oh hell yeah, I gotta snag this, because I saw this on Seasons of Mist, and they had an LP version of it, and it was a little on the pricier side. I would have preferred not to pay as much for that. So when I saw the CD, and I'm more of a CD guy anyhow, so I found this and I was like, yeah, I gotta snag this. So I got Grief, Turbulent Times, which is a bunch of their unreleased and out of print stuff, a lot of the splits that they did with various bands. So yeah, that's going to be a cool one. I really wish that I could get some of these various, and this came out on Southern Lord, but Southern Lord rules. It's such a great label. But I wish I could get a bunch of these splits and stuff like that between, all the like a lot of I Hate God and Soylent Green. I tried getting a Soylent Green I Hate God split recently on eBay, and I don't know what the dude's deal was. I don't know if he was scamming or just not. When I had mentioned it recently about Barry, how I had sent him some stuff, it's kind of as a thank you for helping with some eBay issues. That was the eBay issue. I was buying a split of I Hate God and Soylent Green on it was a 7 inch, I believe, and the guy was in communication early on, and then he just ghosted me, and it was like, dude, what the hell? And so I asked him, I was like, hey, what do I do here? And he's like, yeah, just do this X, Y, and Z. And I did X, Y, and Z, and then eBay resolved it. But bada bing, bada boom, no fuss, no muss. But I just didn't quite understand why the dude did that. I don't know if he was just trying to fish for people's personal information and do some sort of scammy thing, or he's just trying to hit people up for little, like quick hustles or this, that, the other thing, or just lazy and irresponsible. Who the hell knows? You never know. But anyhow, back to what I was talking about. Next up, got this Wasp, still not black enough. I'm trying to get some of the lesser known Wasp CDs to complete my Wasp collection. So this is one of the ones that Jay had available. He's got a couple others available there, but I don't know. I'm just going to keep looking. I'd rather not spend an arm and a leg on stuff. So a couple of things he's got. They're a little on the pricey side. So I just try to be a little more judicious with my funds and what I buy and all that sort of thing. And then finally, this one, I saw this and I said, oh, I got to get this because this again came highly recommended from Trevor from Fumes of Hatred. He told me, Dan, you got to get Strength and Honor by Satanic War Master. So he had that. He had a few copies. I think he's still got a few copies left. So I snagged that one, and yeah, it's awesome. So I can't wait to spin those things and check them out and get to jam out to that sort of stuff, to all that stuff. But yeah, so that was that. And then I wanted to tell you like a crazy story from my job because there's always something happening. So I'm doing my shipping and receiving stuff, and I get a call from the staff because we all have our two-way radios, and they're like, Dan, you got to get out here real quick. So I get out there, and the long and short of it is that these two sets of crazy ass ratchet lesbian couples who had some beef outside of our doors. They knew each other from whatever dealings they all had with each other. They ran into each other and they start turning it into a freaking world star video. And they're not brawling, they're just arguing and really bickering, but then they start telling each other how, oh, I'm gonna get my stick and I'm gonna get my pole and this, that, and the other thing. And me being me, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. And so then I'm trying to, like, everybody wanted me to try to diffuse the situation, but I'm thinking to myself, like, each of these women weigh at least 50 to 75 pounds heavier than I do. What the hell am I going to do here? Plus, they're just being angry and aggressive. There's only so much I can do in this situation. And they started making their way out of our store and taking their shit outside, which was great. And then they separate and they kept talking about, oh, I'll get my stick, I'm gonna run up on you, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And then one set goes inside, the other one's sitting in their car, and I can see the one still sitting in their car after a few minutes. I'm like, all right, they're trying to wait for these two to come back outside to re-engage in the hostility. So I go outside, and they come up to me, and I tell them, I said, look, no, you need to tell them, you need to get them out. I said, no, this ain't how this is gonna work. I said, if they come outside, then all that's going to happen is you're all going to get back into your whatever situation you got going on with each other. And I said, and I don't want that here. I don't want that shit in my store. I don't want it in my parking lot. So what I'm suggesting, not suggesting, what I'm telling you to do is you need to leave. You need to leave. They're inside. You're all separated. Just go your separate ways and take this nonsense someplace else. Like, what? But they started it. It's like, okay, we're not five. I don't give a shit. I don't care. What all I know is that you're all causing a scene in my store. You're making the place look like some hood rat ratchet ass business. You're ruining the place. You're ruining it for everybody. So you go away. I said, whoa. I said, look, these are your options. I can either call the cops and they can resolve the situation for all of you, or you can leave and they'll leave eventually, and then you all can go your separate ways and run into each other someplace else and go be somebody else's problem. So then they sat out there for a couple more minutes, and then I think maybe they thought better of it and might have thought to themselves, oh, he might be serious about calling the cops. And then some of my staff were a little younger than me and know a little bit more about like hood culture and stuff like that. They told me, yeah, Dan, a stick means a gun. So these idiots they were fixing to start shooting each other at some point. And it's just like, I don't need that in this place. You know, come on now. So that was my fun story. So I figured I'd share that. All right, back to the rest of the video. On with the mediocrity. And then we're back. Workout's finished. It was a pretty decent one. Got a good sweat going on. Got a little upper body thing happening today. But anyhow, so to finish this off, the last album that I wanted to talk about was from the Polish black thrash band Void Hanger. And this is Dark Days of the Soul. This is their 2018 release out on Agonia Records. I think most of their stuff is on Agonia, if I'm not mistaken. But this is a band comprised of a bunch of the guys from Infernal War. I was talking to my buddy Trevor from the Fumes of Hatred channel, and he was talking to me about the what is it, Metal Threat, the big fest that's happening in Chicago, and all the bands that were playing on it. And I went and looked, and I saw a bunch of it, and I saw the bands that were playing on it, all the bands that are scheduled. I was like, yeah, that's going to be a pretty good lineup. And he was most excited about the band Infernal War. I had never heard of Infernal War before, so I went, checked them out, listened to Terror Cult, and that just blew my mind how good that was. Just amazing. And I was telling him that, and he said, "Yeah, you should look into some of Stormblast's other bands." The drummer for Infernal War, and he mentioned Void Hanger, which is a couple of the other guys from Infernal War, and yeah, I went and checked them out, and I listened to Wrath Prayers first, and that was killer. I like Wrath Prayers a little bit better than this one, but this one's got some solid tunes on it. The title track, "Dark Days of the Soul," "High on Hate," uh, the second track, I get it, "Death Wish." Yeah, that those are really solid tracks. The whole album is solid, but those are probably my favorite ones. Um, if you're familiar with anything black thrash related, particularly more the old school kind of stuff, Sodom, Venom, just ironic I'm wearing the shirt, but it's fantastic stuff. Uh, a lot of the stuff from Infernal War that I've heard is pretty good. I picked up a couple Infernal War CDs from Hell's Headbangers recently, and just trying to pick up their stuff now, just because I was so impressed with it that I was like, yeah, I gotta listen to more of this stuff. Tried finding Terror Cult, having a hard time finding that. Wrath Prayers, having a hard time finding that. If anybody knows where a good place is to go find those, uh, Hell's, they have their order questions. I asked and I didn't really get a response. I didn't get a response, period. So if anybody knows where I could go to find that, I imagine because both bands come with their own little controversies based on associations and stuff like that. So it is what it is. But I enjoy the music. I think it's killer. If you haven't heard of it, I imagine most people who watch this have heard of both bands. But yeah, man, this is killer stuff. Probably look into more of the bands that all the various players are involved with, and yeah, this is fantastic black thrash. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's going to round out the music portion of my Void video, and then throwing you a curveball as I always do. I got a movie suggestion. This is kind of what sparked the whole thing because I wanted to talk about this movie. And then it got me thinking, and I was like, well, I don't want to just straight up talk about the movie because I think sometimes the movie stuff that I do, honestly, I think it doesn't really resonate with people. I don't know if they find it boring or they're just not interested or what have you. Personally, I find when he does his videos on the movies, I like what he does because he's able to splice in at the very least trailers and stuff like that. And I imagine there's a way to do that. I just haven't figured out how to do it, whether it's having a subscription to YouTube Premium or going on, using a certain like OBS or StreamYard or one of those things, Restream, whatever, all the stuff that all the streaming people, all the live streamers use. I don't know if that's a way to do it, but point being is I find that stuff a lot more, and it's a lot more. There's a lot more meat on that bone versus me talking and doing my little pop up gimmicks and images and whatnot. But for now, that's what you get from me because that's the best I can do for the moment. But the movie I'm talking about is from 2016. It's called The Void, and this is a killer movie. I found it very hard to get a physical copy of. I asked a couple of people who sell movies, and they said that it's been out of print for quite a while. You go on Amazon, and it's ridiculously expensive. I think it's like some ridiculous. It's close to like $100 for a movie, And sometimes you can find other copies of it, but I think they're foreign ones, so I don't know if it's exactly, I don't know if the movie's dubbed or whatnot in that. So I don't really want to risk buying something that I can't really listen to. But I imagine there's probably English formatted versions of the movie. But this is it's a Canadian film. It was written by Jeremy Gillespie and Stephen Kostansky. I don't really know a bunch of the actors in it, but it's basically it's like a it's very heavily influenced by Lovecraftian lore, cosmic horror, stuff like that. Uh, police officer, sergeant, lieutenant. I can't remember his rank in the movie, but it's inconsequential. He happens upon a guy stranded on the side of the road. The guy's in really bad shape. He rushes him to a hospital, which is in the process of being abandoned. And once he gets to the hospital, all hell starts breaking loose. Weird crap starts happening. They run into these two strangers who show up and kind of take the place hostage. And in the process of doing that, the sheriff they start experiencing all sorts of weird stuff begins happening. One of the nurses gets possessed and starts disfiguring her face, just mutilating her face, kills a patient, and he go at one point he goes outside and you start seeing these weird shadowy figures in these crazy ass white robes with some weird insignia on it. And it just as the movie unfolds, you start to realize that these people are part of a cult. They're trying to summon all these sorts of supernatural entities into the world, and there's this whole sacrificial rites that are being performed that have to be performed to do this. And it leads the main characters of the movie eventually as they try to figure things out and try to find various characters in the movie. They start it leads them down it literally leads them down a path into another world, into another dimension. And it just kind of it's like batshit with as far as that goes. The effects are tremendous. They use lots of practical effects on it, which is great. I think the guys involved in this, they also did a movie called Psycho Gorman, which I had a copy of, and I loaned it to somebody to watch, and then it never got returned to me. So I got to get on his ass about returning it to me because he moved and he boxed it up and doesn't know where it is, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a very cool movie. I would highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. If you're into the cosmic horror stuff, anything like any Stuart Gordon stuff, you know, like From Beyond, the animator movies. Try to think of some other things that are more cosmic horror related. Color Out of Space, that's a halfway decent one. Any of that sort of stuff, anything based on a Lovecraft work is solid. And yeah, this is just a killer movie. I've watched it tons of times. You can find on Tubi currently. It's on there pretty much on repeat. And yeah, it's a fantastic movie. It was what spurred me to do this video. And yeah, so that's what I got for you. Uh, Hope you enjoyed it. If you have you want to offer up any commentary on any other bands, songs, albums with Void in them that you think are really good, then, throw it in the comments. Always appreciate interacting with people. And yes, that's what I got for you once again. So as always, this is Dan. This has been Moonshine Talking. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Everybody have a good one. As always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. I gotta go grab something to eat. Then I gotta get to work because there is no rest for the wicked. All right, everybody, take it easy, and I will catch you on the next one. Later.